Hello, this is Patrick Dean. Thank you very much for being on Facebook Live. And I want to tell you, I have had my heart broken. In my younger years, I had this girlfriend. She was awesome. And we spent 5 years together. And uh, I caught her with a friend of mine on sometime in the fifth year. And my heart was broken. And I don't know if any of you haven't had an experience like that, but it was awful. And so what happened was my trust level went to zero. And tonight, I want to talk a little bit in the short time that we have together. I want to talk about trust. Now, first of all, I apologize for being all over around this trust, but I wanted to really address trust and what it means and how we can develop and get it back when something horrendous happens to us or once when we have an incident that breaks our trust. So tonight I'm going to talk a little bit about the nature of trust, and then what I'm going to talk about is how to develop it back, at least from my point of view and from the experience I've had working with people. So I hope this is really valuable if you are in a place right now where you're not so trusting. I mean, I look out there and I see that this experience and kind of context of not trusting is all over the place right now. What I mean by that is um, you look in the newspaper and you see tribes of people or groups of people who believe one thing or don't believe another, and that we don't trust other groups, or we don't trust the sincerity of people that don't believe like us, that we have breakdowns between men and women trusting, and we're kind of going at each other, and or breakdowns in the area of we don't trust somebody that's not in our tribe or group or race or anything like that. There's a breakdown there. Or we don't trust people that with less money or more money. And there just seems to be right now this experience of lack of trust going on. And I want to talk about that, as I said, and talk about a way that maybe we can start trusting each other, and why we would even want to do that. So let's jump into this. And I wanted to talk from a book. I'm going to start with some research that was done by a man named Malcolm Gladwell in a book called Talking to Strangers. And I really recommend this book. It's all about communication and trust. And Malcolm Gladwell says in his book that as human beings, we have something called the default to trust. In other words, there is a part of us that trusts other people when we are with them. We trust what comes out of their mouth is the truth for them. We trust that their actions, that they say that they keep their word, that they're going to do what they say. We have kind of a natural a tendency to trust that when somebody presents themselves as someone, that we kind of believe that that's who they are. So, what is the purpose of this default from trust? Well, in the book, Malcolm Gladwell says the purpose of the default to trust is part of the social contract. So, what that means is that we trust each other because it's the cement that holds relationships together. And without it, we break this social contract and that we cannot connect with each other. So without some trust in our life, we have a lot of problems connecting or developing the kind of relationships or businesses or whatever that we want to develop. So what happens is that when we have an incident in our life, something, I mean, you can think about stuff that were real betrayals in your life or really hard experiences for you where you trusted and that there was some deception or something went on. And then what happens is we swing away from this natural tendency to trust and we swing over into another default. Default means it's the automatic way we think, and we swing over into non trusting. So no one can be trusted, or very few people can be trusted. And we start to look at the world through that, through sort of the sunglasses of that experience. And I was thinking about why we do that. everything that we do as human beings, we have prices and benefits. We've talked about this one before. And we have prices and benefits for every action. And I wanted to look at what is the benefit of swinging ourselves over into the default position of no one can be trusted, or they have to prove themselves to us over and over. So many people get in relationships and they make the people in their lives jump through hoops over and over to prove that they're trustworthy. And that's where relationships get very difficult and hard, and people get worn out after they're put through the test over and over. So this swinging over to the non-trusting must have some benefits. And here's what I think the benefits are if you're going to jump into non-trust. It seems like to not trust people is an intelligent or wise thing to do. That trusting no one or trusting very few people is common sense. It's rational and logical. That you're not going to get conned. That you're not going to get taken advantage of. You don't want to appear weak or stupid, or non-trusting gives you that distance from other people so you can control the situation. And I think that if we default to not trusting, no one can get anything over on us. It's kind of the experience. And like I said, we certainly don't want to look like we can get conned or that we can get fooled in any way. And so we switch over to that. And that's the way we start to live our life. Again, what happens in that situation is that when we come from that consistently and all the time, the price we pay, so the benefits you can see, not getting conned, having more control, keeping people at a distance, not getting hurt, not being vulnerable. You see, all of those benefits are offset by the price that non-trust creates no relationships or no real connection. And that's why I think that we struggle in our lives, as we have this sort of this heartfelt level that we want to trust people, that we can be with them. And the other part of that is from all of this experience that we carry with us, like rocks in a backpack, all this reasons why we don't trust, we default to non-trust. So what have I learned about that? And as I looked more deeply into my experiences in my life, I have seen where non-trust has really served me in keeping a distance, but has not served me. So in my work with all of you, my work with people, what I work with is how do we swing from non-trust back to the center, that place between default to trust all the time and default to trust nobody. How do we swing that back to center? And I think one of the greatest ways that we can swing this back to center is to take a step back and look at the origin of the experience and look at ourselves. So it comes back to me when I look at what happened. So when I look at what happened, what really occurred for me and what was one of the most painful parts of the experience, although I was more than willing to blame other people, was the fact that I stopped trusting my own ability to discern a situation. I stopped trusting my ability to see what was going on or to have intuition. I didn't trust any of that within myself. And I think that that was part of the most painful part of as I said, the most painful thing. I don't know if you relate to this, what I'm talking about, but it's like trust in yourself goes away when we switch into non-trust. That's really the origin. So would you go to the most, so a really bad part of town? Would you wear all your jewelry and your expensive watch, and would you walk down the middle of the street with all this stuff on in the worst part of town? Of course, you're not going to do that. Does that mean that you're a non-trusting person? I don't think so. What that means is that you starting to trust your own intuition about what you should and shouldn't do. And here's what I have learned about human beings. I'm not very disappointed anymore in human beings, generally speaking, because all of us are pretty much, we can be pretty much trusted to act as human beings. People are going to be people. Some people are simply prisoners of their past and they keep acting out the same stuff over and over. If I start trusting my own intuition, then I can understand that. I don't go to a lot of blame with people. And what I'm inviting you to do is not go to a lot of blame with the people out there and start taking a look at you can trust yourself. You can get yourself out of situations or into situations that allow you to make connection with people. So the very beginning of it is to just take a deep breath, look at the backpack with all these rocks from our past stuff, and start to discard them a little bit and swing yourself back into that position between default to non-trust and default to trust. And that's where the greatest part of relationship lies. So when you start to develop your intuition, there's some things that you can do to start tuning that intuition up and to start understanding who you can trust with something personal and vulnerable, who you can trust with money, or who you can trust to be partners with, or who you can trust in your life, and people that are not so trustworthy. So the first thing is, I think that what you can do is you can watch people. And if you watch people and see how they treat other people, that's going to give you a great indicator whether you want to be in business with them or partners with them or go out on a date with them or whatever. You can watch how they treat others. I mean, they might be sweet and nice to you. I have a friend that says if a person treats you great, but they treat a waiter shitty, then that's who the person is. I don't know if that's true or not, but kind of watch people and trust yourself in that. So another thing that you can do is when you're with people, listen to how they talk about other people. That will give you an indication of trustworthiness. Because if people gossip and talk about other people with you, they're going to gossip with other people about you. So that's kind of a person that you want to evaluate how much you want to share with or how much you want to get into a close relationship with. Another person that you want to evaluate and you want to start using your intuition is a person that's really committed to being right. They always have the answer for everything. They're not great learners. They've decided the way it is, and in the way it is, then they're on a mission to make sure everybody knows what they believe, and everybody thinks they want everybody to think they're right. They've got the answer. I think that's a person to give a pretty wide berth to. It's a pretty dangerous person who thinks they're always right, and that means by default they're never going to learn anything. So that would be another person, to kind of give some intuition. I'm not talking about blaming them or being angry or any of that kind of stuff. I'm just talking about taking care of yourself with this. Okay. And finally, I think one thing that we can all do is look around at the people, and you want to be close to people who keep their word. So if a person, something simple, think about this one. Do they show up on time? Do they say what they're going to do? Do they do what they say they're going to do? Is an indicator of how much or close that you want them in your life. It means that people that don't keep their word very much, or they're sloppy about it, or they don't follow through, it doesn't mean that you don't like them. It simply means that perhaps that's not the person that you want to be in partnership with or close to, and that you want to really remind yourself that people will be people. This thing about keeping your word, I think one of the things that I have learned, and I have some great business partners right now, great business partners. And what I have learned is that you can trust people who create results. Not people who talk about it, but people that can create results. They can actually go out and say, this is what I'm going to do. And they give it an amazing try, and they're in the game, and they put their action where their words are. Is a great person to be around. Sometimes, it's a little risky, it's a little fun, it's a little exciting, but when you're with people that are out there keeping their word, striving and risking themselves, that's a wonderful person to be in relationship with. I have so many of my clients right now that we are working on what is the next step? What is it for us to learn? How can we take a huge step forward in our life? And it really comes down to, when we identify that, trusting ourselves to take the step that we didn't think we were going to be able to take, or take the step that we didn't think we were ready to take, but going out and doing it anyway and learning from that experience. So anyway, trusting is swinging it back. Trusting is letting go of the rocks in the backpack. Trusting is trusting your own intuition. I hope this was helpful for you. And so we're going to continue on, and we'll be on Facebook Live next week, and we'll tackle another one. So go out there, be discerning, and live the life that you were born to live. Have a great time, and we'll talk with you again. This is Patrick Dean for PatrickDeanCoaching.com, and we'll talk again. Bye-bye.